Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. My friend Michael is here from the Department of Ag, Trade, Consumer Protection. And Michael, today we're going to be focusing on extortion emails. For whatever reason, out of the blue, it's probably been going on for a while, but all of a sudden we got more of these reported, which is great. You're hearing about these things at the old agency. But a classic. I'm calling it a classic. You're going to be like, it's classic with a twist.
Those are the words I was going to use exactly.
Yeah, I know.
It's a classic with
it's
a
like
twist.
We practiced that. So talk about what is an extortion email. Let's start with that. That's what this is all about today.
It is. It's a text or an email that's coming through, and it's stating that this person has evidence of websites or certain activity that you've done on your phone or PC, and that it's damaging and it's incriminating. And oftentimes they're going to say that they have recordings of you, that they've accessed your camera on any of your devices. And so they can prove that you've been visiting websites or you've downloaded information, you've looked at certain things, or you've been talking to certain people. Whatever actions that they think they can accuse you of that's going to create some type of emotional response or fear or panic in you. And that if you don't respond to their message, they're going to share these recordings and your activity with friends, family, business partners, things like that.
So my first question is, do you interact? Yeah. So this is an out of the blue response. I mean, I see every red flag here, but do you react to this?
You absolutely do not react to it. We want you to just leave the message. Don't click on any links. Don't call any phone numbers. Don't respond. And even to the fact that in this message, you're probably going to see that there is sometimes a picture of your own house. They're going to have real information about you. It's going to cause you to pause, and that's why I think that's the twist of them taking Google images of your house or having little bits of information that might be publicly accessible, but you didn't realize it was, and it's making it more convincing. But we want you to just take a step back, know that we talked about it today, you heard about it, you recognize that's a scam, and don't react to it.
So let's just say, and how do these messages show up? So how are people running into this? Where are they getting intercepted, so to speak, in the process of whatever they're doing?
You're just getting a regular email, or you're getting a text message, just like we get every single day. We get those spam messages that come through. Sometimes we get spam emails. These will show up just in the normal inbox, and you'll think it's a regular.
I wanted you to repeat that because I think it's really important here that this is an unsolicited message that's coming in from two popular sources, email and phone.
Yep.
That could be an immediate red flag. Don't know the number, don't know the email, don't know, and you're like, oh man, they've got stuff on me. So don't panic. What if I've started to engage, and now they're up to the payment part. Now we're deep.
Yeah.
And what's happening at that part?
What you're going to hear is almost exclusively they're going to ask you to send cryptocurrency. They're going to either ask you to go to some type of platform to send that to them. They may send you a local Bitcoin ATM that's in local gas stations or liquor stores. But there's some type of payment that is going to be almost untraceable. And so that's going to be another red flag for you, is that's clearly them trying to extort you through that payment method.
Ultimately, and I know I jumped the gun here on what to do to stop here, but when I say classic, I mean, spam's always been there. Spam has come in different forms. I feel like it's taken new roles with the cell phone side of things and getting random text messages and whatnot. But do you think over time that we're going to see more of this type of real-time information because we're out there on social media, because there's so much stuff on the web? And so these are going to be more realistic and not just simple, call you and hopefully you're going to accept, a random speech or random something.
I do. I think that this is a great illustration of how we've talked about scams advancing and progressing and growing and getting more convincing. And they have to do that for two reasons. One, because we bring awareness and we talk about them so often. And so they say, now we need to change it up. They know what they're looking for. The second is the accessibility of all this information. I mentioned taking a Google Maps picture of your house. We can do that for anybody's house. And so if you can pinpoint who that recipient is, or there's so much data out there, if you can just start aggregating that data, it's pretty easy to put together a profile of who Jeremy is and where he works and where his home address is, and then it makes that email a little bit more targeted. And so it's less of a compromise that's necessary to get in there and then create that suspicion. But It's that twist that plays on how you started. The classic approach of create a panic, create that emotional response, get them to continue to engage, and then pay that through a method you can't get. I mean, those are the cornerstones of every scam, and we're seeing it again.
Oofta. All right, so don't panic. Report it. That's the way. I think maybe that could be our new saying of 2025 when we turn the calendar page. Don't panic, report it.
We want you to report it. Report it to both DATCP, but we want you to report it also to the FBI and IC3, ic3.gov, and at datcp.wi.gov. And in doing that, it does a couple things. First, it gives us some insight as to how prevalent it's happening. We also might see that there's different twists and angles. You know, we're talking about one with a Google photo, but we might see additional things being added on because now we've talked about it, we've brought awareness, and so they need to add that next layer. And it helps us make sure that that information gets out there and so that they can make sure that we stop it. Also report it if you did happen to suffer a loss. The more quickly you report it, the more opportunity there is for us to help you. And there's two angles of that. One might be the financial loss, where IC3 might be able to help. But also, if you provide more information or sent things, we can help you with the identity theft process of it. And that side of saying, I'll help you recover and what that account recovery looks like.
Would you recommend, if you know it's a scam, to mess with somebody like this?
Absolutely.
So because you're curious, like, well, how'd you get that information? Like, is that worth your time and effort?
Absolutely not. I would discourage anyone from ever engaging in these, no matter what you think you're going to get out of it, what information you might find, perhaps that you can provide to law enforcement. They're not going to need it. They're going to get it on their own. You know, we hear this in some of our classic presentations where we would talk about, robocallers or these scam callers, and you'd be like, well, I kept them on the phone for half an hour and we talked about it, but unknowingly you gave away more information through those conversations. No matter how innocent or benign you think it is, it's still valuable to them. It's the exact same thing with these, and you talk about engaging and providing more information that's of value to them, or you might just end up tricking yourself into thinking it actually is real through those conversations. You're absolutely safest if you just stop and leave it, because it's almost a certainty that it's a scam and they don't have any of the information they're alleging.
I did like that you covered that there's probably going to happen more. And there's just so much out there. And maybe this is a good time to remind people, too, of what you put out there is hard to go away. And it's not to scare people, but you may want to think twice when you're posting things on social media or you're sharing stuff out there, because once it's out there, it's out there.
It's out there. And I think it's just, we don't want to scare anyone from, as you mentioned, using, the platforms, but just being a little bit aware of what you are putting out there may be misused in other areas. And so when something like this email shows up, or maybe it has a snapshot of one of your social media posts, recognize, well, that's out there. Everyone can grab that. And so don't let that be the convincing factor of why you need to pay now, because how could anyone else get it? All those things you're putting out there are out there forever.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, if people want to learn more about any of the scams out there, ways to protect you, online safety, trust me, the library at DATCP's website is amazing, and it's worth the read to understand what's going on out there and keep yourself and your family protected. These are conversations you got to have, and you got to stay up on this. And that's why we love having Michael and the team come here and talk with us on Talking Fitchburg.
Well, I'm glad that you actually brought up about talking to your friends and family and sharing the word, because we sit here right now and everyone's watching and listening, but become an advocate as well, just for them, not necessarily for us, but for your friends and family, to keep them protected. Share the message in case they didn't see it, because when they hear it, then all of a sudden it'll trigger and they'll say, oh yeah, I need to stop.
And the shame thing too, that's kind of come up throughout the years, and everybody knows the pool story now by now for both DATCP and Better Business Bureau. But yes, are you kind of sad that you fell victim to something like that? Yes. But don't be ashamed. Report it and get help, because the longer you let it go on, the worse it's going to get. And if you can nip it in the butt right away, maybe there's a chance to stop it. No guarantee, but I think asking somebody is the best, to clarify, like, hey, am I crazy? Does this sound weird? Or, hey, I think I got myself into the real world of hurt. It's okay.
And that shame is, twofold. First is for yourself, if you fell victim, recognizing that human emotional response is going to be embarrassment and anger, that you lost the money, but recognize that you were a victim, that you were targeted. Conversely, that shame also applies to friends or family who may have fallen victim to it, and making sure that we don't add on to that by saying, how could you have fallen for this? How did you not see the red signs? Because that's going to prevent them from reporting it. It's going to put them back in and say, well, I don't want to tell anyone else because I'm embarrassed. Also, make sure they're aware that they're a victim. And to your point, bring them out, give them an opportunity to report, encourage them to report it, so that those agencies that are out there that have the tools and resources to help and find the bad guys, that they can do it.
All right, Michael, I appreciate the time as always. We'll check back in with you next month.
Thanks, Jeremy.